那第一场这个 session 呢是由 Vlambeer 的 Rami Ismail 来给我们做一些分享。那大家可能有发现到他在最后一天为止都还没有把他的讲题公布上去，为什么呢？因为他今年总共去了80个国际活动，80个啊，那这是应该是第81个。那也就是他在这种情况下还赶得过来。那我想说就是而且他80个从来没有讲过重复的题目，哦，所以网络上绝对找不到。这是第一场，每一场都是第一场。好，那我们就以热烈的掌声欢迎 Rami。
Hi. Yeah, it's kind of cool to get an introduction in a language you don't really understand. So I've got no clue what he just said. I hope it was good. Anyway, that's me. I'm going to quickly introduce Vlambeer for those of you that don't know what my company is. And then I'm going to talk a bit about making independent games as a small studio and reaching out to the international market if that is what you want. So, my name is Rami Ismail. I drink a lot of Coca-Cola. I am the business guy and developer at Vlambeer, which means that I program and I do everything related to marketing and business. My colleague is JW, whose real name is Jan Willem Nijman, but nobody knows how to pronounce that, so we just all call him JW. JW is the designer, which means he doodles in booklets a lot, and then makes games. In the past few years, we've made a lot of games. We're best known for games as Super Crate Box, Ridiculous Fishing, Luftrausers, Gun Gods, Serious Sam the Random Encounter, and nowadays also Nuclear Throne. And we started about 4 or 5 years ago when me and JW had this little prototype for a little game that would eventually become Super Crate Box. And both of us were in school. We'd been developing games since we were really, really young. I started when I was 6 years old, and JW started when he was 14 years old. So we've been making games, and we decided to go to school for it. And this prototype sort of convinced us that we could start our own company. Now, me and JW didn't really like each other. And to be really honest, we still really don't like each other, but that's fine because we respect each other. But basically, we decided to go out of school, go and start and make video games on our own. Which honestly wasn't a big success at the start. These are instant ramen noodles. They were very, very cheap, so we ate a lot of them because we didn't make money. We were very, very poor. We really didn't like the chicken and beef noodles, but the duck noodles were pretty great. So we also bought a lot of Coca-Cola, because I liked Coca-Cola. And we worked very, very long days. We worked, sometimes we'd work like 20 hours per day just to get that game done. But the problem is we didn't have money, and we needed money. And back in the days, you could earn money making Flash games. So when we wondered how to make money, and only being good at making games, we decided to make a Flash game about shooting fish with machine guns. That made a lot of sense to us. We sold this game for $10,001 US, which was pretty good for like just 2 kids making games. And we used that money to turn this game into Super Crate Box. Now, Super Crate Box was our first hit, was our first success. It was a freeware game, so you didn't have to pay for it. But it spread really, really quickly, and a lot of people really liked it. And one of the things that was cool was that we got nominated for the Independent Games Festival Award, which in a way are kind of the Oscars of independent games. So suddenly we were flying to San Francisco and like getting fancy food, which is great if you've been eating noodles for 3 months. And you know, suddenly Vlambeer was a thing. People were talking about Vlambeer and about Super Crate Box, and that was really weird to us. And so we stayed really humble and normal, like normal people do. And then we made more games, and people started to ask us to give talks, and then we made more games. And then we started going to conferences. This is at PAX East in Boston. And this is the first time we sold t-shirts with our own logo on it, which is super cool. Like if you don't have t-shirts with your own logo on it, get t-shirts with your own logo. They're awesome. And then we started working on more games. This was Ridiculous Fishing. So if you remember that little Flash game, Radical Fishing, about shooting fish with machine guns, we decided to make that game again, but better, and for iOS. So we got a really cool team together. We worked with a bunch of people from New York and Chicago, Zach H. and Greg Woolwand. And we started working on an iOS game. And then someone in San Francisco thought it would be a really good idea to steal our idea and make that game themselves. So they made a game called Ninja Fishing, which was a literal rip-off of our game. And we didn't like that, so we decided to go to the press and talk to the press about how our game got stolen. This is the New York Times, which is one of the largest newspapers in the world. And that is my face in the largest newspaper in the world. And that's JW's face, but I put a black bar in front of him because I don't want to stare at his face right now. So people talk more about Flounder because now we were in like very big websites and on very big newspapers, so we made more games. And Ridiculous Fishing, like getting cloned, having somebody steal our idea, was kind of depressing to us, so we started working on this game to sort of get back on track, get back to making games. So as we finished Luftrausers, the airplane game on the right, we also finished Ridiculous Fishing, and Ridiculous Fishing actually became Game of the Year on iOS, which is huge. Like, that's a very big deal. We were the best game that released on iOS in 2013. And since then, we've been working on this game called Nuclear Throne, which, if you were listening to the music before the presentation, that was totally music from this game. We've been developing this in early access, and on Twitch, if you want to see how we make a video game, every Tuesday and every Thursday, we live stream how we make this game on Twitch TV/Flounder. Anyway, I want to talk a bit about making games that are genuine, and I want to talk a bit about marketing and reaching out to the international press. How many of you, just quickly for me, are independent game developers or want to make independent games? Anyone? That's pretty good. Hi, good luck. So, if you want to do this, there's a bunch of things that we kind of need to go through. The first one is you need to know what you're doing, which is a lot harder than it sounds. You have to know what you're making. You have to know how to reach out. And you have to know how to handle press. And before we continue, I want to add a quick note to independent game development, which is, if I'm really honest, being an independent game developer is really, really hard. Like, this is not easy. This is something you do because you're passionate about it, because there's an infinite range of things that can go wrong if you go indie, right? Like, you can have emotional problems, you can burn out, there's like pressure from the outside, there's a lot of things that you need to do on your own. And when you look at making a game, people very often look at independent game development like this. You know, you do like a bit of game design, and a bit of game development, and a bit of game art, and a bit of game audio. But then if you run a company, it looks like this. It's what people think. So you do all the stuff that you normally do, but then you also have to do the business, which takes half of your time. But then the reality is actually more like this. Where you need to do all that, and then marketing and legal, and you need to do accountancy, and you need to make your website and run your social media and make your trailers, and you kind of have to be out of your mind to be an independent game developer. But that's fine, because if you're an independent game developer, you're an independent game developer because you're passionate, because you care, because you love video games. That's the only reason to be an independent game developer, because if you're here just to become rich easily, video games are kind of the wrong place to do that, right? Like, video games, you can earn money. You can kind of earn good money, like we've been really lucky with Vlambeer. But making money in video games is really, really hard. So, there's one thing you can do to make things easier, and that is take everything seriously. Everything, every single thing. You take your marketing seriously, you take your development seriously, you take your design seriously, you take making your website seriously, you take making your trade, you take everything seriously until you've established yourself, until you understand what you need to do to get some success, and then you figure out what you don't have to take seriously. Because for example, when we make a game, one of the things we don't take seriously is the original pitch to a publisher. Because when people think about Vlambeer, they kind of think like weird games about like shooting fish with machine guns. So we're not going to write like a very thick business document about the business case for a game. We just send people a piece of paper with a drawing of a dinosaur. I say, we want like $30,000 for this. And they're like, okay, I guess. And the reason we can do that is because we make very genuine games. The games that we make are me and Jan Willem. They're the two of us. They're what you get when you put me and JW in a room and let us argue about what kind of game we want to make. Well, what kind of game do we want to make? Well, how about a game about hip-hop on Venus? I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but we made that game because we wanted to make that game, right? And the thing is, everybody is unique. Everybody has a different view, a different perspective on the world, a different cultural history. I'm half Dutch, I'm half Egyptian, and I have a very different view of the world than JW has, and everybody has that. Like, people from all over the world have different perspectives. People in the same country have different perspectives. People with the same education have different perspectives. Everybody has a different perspective, and that makes everybody unique. The thing is that you have to use that when you're making games. It's not something to be afraid of, to be different. When you want to make games, this is a creative endeavor. You're being creative. One of the best ways to be creative is to just be honest. You can do market research and figure out what kind of game is popular in the market right now. The thing is, everybody's doing that. Everybody's doing market research. Everybody's trying to figure out what the next big Flappy Bird is going to be. The trick is to not do that. Be genuine. Be honest. Be creative. And yes, sure, you can do market research to check whether the idea you have is feasible at all. But at the core of your games should be that you want to make this game. That this is a game that you really, really care about. So, one of the important things in making a game is communicating. And we don't like to think of games as communicating. We like to think of games as entertainment, as just fun, right? But games are a medium. Games are a medium just like books and movies and music. And books and movies and music are being used to communicate. I have an idea, and I make a song to tell you that idea. I have an idea, I make a movie to tell you that idea, or a book. Games are no different. They're medium. They can be used to tell everything, anything. If you can set your mind to it, you can tell it through a video game. So, designing a game is communicating. It's thinking about, what do I want to say with this game? What do I want you as the player to feel? What do I want you to think? What do I want you to do? How do I communicate that? But communicating is also really important when you market your game. Because if you're going to be making a game and you're going to put everything you have in that, one of the things you owe your game, one of the things you should do, is make sure to market it. If you market it, people will play it. And if nobody's playing a video game, it's not a video game. A video game, at its core, is interactive. It requires a player. It requires somebody to press the button. Because if nobody's pressing the button, it's nothing. It's a static screen that doesn't do anything. We need the player. A game is a conversation between us as creators and the player that is playing it. So, if nobody is playing your game, you've made nothing. You need to market. You owe it to your hard work. You owe it to your game. So one of the ways we do that is by polishing our game. And I want to stress this because a lot of game developers forget to polish properly. This is not a big point in my talk. I just want to tell you, I just want to please polish your game. Please spend more time on the user interface. Spend more time on communicating. If you make a game like Angry Birds, you know why Angry Birds is good? It's not because the core game design of Angry Birds is good. Angry Birds is good because when you beat a level, it shows you 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, fireworks, explosions, everything. It lets you know that you are the best player ever playing Angry Birds, ever. You're not the best player. But Angry Birds makes you think it. And that's good user interface design. Let the player feel what you want them to feel. The people that made Angry Birds, they want you to feel happy. They want you to feel like you did something right. And everything in Angry Birds, from the way things fall over, to the way they show you that you've beat a level, is made to communicate that idea. If you are making a game, think about what you want the player to feel, what you want the player to think, what you want the player to do, and polish. Keep polishing until every single player that plays your game, every single player that tests your game, if you ask them afterwards, what did you feel? They give you the answer you want. If you want them to feel happy, if they say happy, that's good. If they say something else, figure out why and fix it. Make sure that your game communicates, because that's what we are. We're a medium. We communicate. So let's move on to pitching. Pitching is really, really hard. The art of pitching is to communicate what is valuable about your game in very, very few words. It is, if you, after this presentation, decide to come to me and tell me about your game, knowing how to tell me about your game in about 3 sentences. Not more, just 3. And I want you to take a moment, if you are working on a game, to think about whether you could do that. Whether you could come to me after this talk and tell me what your game is in just 3 sentences. And a lot of you will say something like, well, you know, it's a small game about whatever, I'm very excited about it. And that's not a good pitch. And it's not a good pitch because you haven't told me a number of things. You haven't told me what is special about your game. You haven't told me what is different about your game. You haven't told me why you're excited about this game. There are a number of questions that you should think about if you're going to present your game to other people. And there are 3 really simple questions. They're who, they're what, and they're why. And these are important questions not just because of these single words. They're important questions because they're at the start of every important question you have to ask yourself, not just when you're promoting your game, not just when you're marketing, but also when you're thinking about your game, when you're making your game. So let's start with the most important one, that is a who question. Who am I? And a lot of people think they have the answer to this, but it's actually a much harder question when you start thinking about it. I mean, when I started this presentation, I spent how much? 10 minutes introducing Vlaampeer, introducing who I am, that I started making games when I was 6. I spent a lot of time talking about the awards that we've won and the games that I've made. Why do you think I did that? Because I'm standing here now, right? I'm standing in front of all of you, and it's important for this talk that you know who I am. It's important for this talk for you to know that I've done something in the games industry, something that got awards, and that there's a reason that I was invited here. I need you to know that what I'm saying here is based on my personal experiences. So I spent the first 10 minutes of my talk convincing you of who I am, rather than telling you about what I want to talk about. Because who I am is important. And it's the same way for you. Who you are is important. It's relevant. It's something that will help people understand why you're making this game. So think about who you are, about what makes you different, about what makes you special, about what is interesting, is unique about the way you look at the world. Why are you working on this game? Why were you the best person on this planet to be working on the game you're working on right now? Why did nobody else make that game? Who are you? And if you're a company, you know, the additional question is like, what is my brand? Like, what do people think about when they think about Vlaampeer? I think about that a lot. What do people think about when they think about Flambeer? Do they think about the free tools that we make? Do they think about the arcade games that we make? Do they think about me flying around in an airplane all the time? Do they think about JW drawing weird things on Twitter? What do people think about when they think about Flambeer? Who is Flambeer? Who are you? So the other question, if you're going to be pitching your game to the press, it's important to think about who you are pitching to. So, let's say you're working on an iOS video game. It's for the iPad, for the iPhone, and you need to start sending this to the press internationally. Now, one of the worst things you could do is send it to a website like Rock Paper Shotgun. Now, Rock Paper Shotgun is a pretty well-known American gaming site, but they only cover PC games. So sending your iOS game to them is not a good idea, right? And that's a really simple example. If you're going to be pitching your game, what you need to do, or what you should do, is figure out who likes games like the game you're making. If we're making a game that is an action game about fishing, and a Flash game, a web browser game, we're going to look and read the press, figure out who likes games like that, and then send it to them. Figure out who would like the games that we made, and send it to them. We don't just send it, we're not going to send a Flambeer game to somebody that really likes games with big stories and very, very, like, 30 hours of gameplay RPGs. Like, we don't make those games. The games that we make are very quick action games. You play them, you die, you play again. So we're going to find people that like those and pitch to them. But you also need to think about how they would want you to send news to them. Sending a pitch to the New York Times is a very different thing than sending a pitch to Kotaku or a similar gaming website, right? They're very different places. So you need to think about, what does the person that I'm pitching my game to, what does the place that I'm promoting my game to expect from me? What kind of jargon do they know? Do they know, like, do they know what an MMO is? Like, a lot of people in the traditional press don't know about that. So you need to explain that to them, be clear. So think about who you're pitching to. Now, that's the last question related to who. They've got what? What am I pitching? And this is a very simple question because it's my game, right? I'm pitching my game. That's it. It's not that simple. What am I pitching is a question you should be able to answer in one sentence. What is my game? Ridiculous Fishing is a game about fishing with machine guns. One sentence. You immediately get what the game is. Sure, it doesn't explain everything about the game, but it's the most interesting thing about the game. We made a game in which you have to shoot fish. That's the story. Luftrausser is a game about dogfighting with superweapons. Doesn't fully explain what the game is, but it kind of explains to you what the feeling is that you're supposed to get. You're supposed to feel powerful. You're supposed to be flying in these superweapons. Super Crane Box is a single-screen arcade platformer that should have been made in the 1980s. One sentence, it kind of gives away what it is, but not really. It's the most interesting thing about Super Crane Box. That this is a game that could have been made 25 years ago, but nobody made it. We did, in 2010. So, every game has its own one sentence. One sentence. And you need to think about what kind of game you're making. Is this a game that's very mechanical? Is it about mechanics? Is it about systems? Talk about that. Is it a very emotional game? Talk about the emotion. Is it a game that is mostly just really, really pretty? Talk about the art. Think about what is different. A lot of people, when they talk about their game, they say words like unique, or revolutionary, or brand new. Those are not good words. And you know why not? Because everybody says that. Everybody says that this game is a great game, a new game, an innovative game, a revolutionary game. They all say that. So it stops meaning anything. I don't need to know that your game is new because you're emailing me. So it is new. I don't need you to tell me that your game is good. Because if it's not good, why are you emailing me? I need you to tell me what is special, what is interesting. And a good way to figure out what that is why am I pitching that? So why am I pitching this game? Why is the most important question you have? It's more important than any other question that you could possibly use. Why is important for you as a designer? It's important to you as a developer. It's important to you as a marketeer. Why is at the core of everything? And why is at the core of everything? Because it explains motivation. And one of the things you need to get me excited about your game is to let me know why you are excited about your game. Because a lot of people, they can sort of tell why they're excited about their game. Well, you know, I'm excited about this game because it's our new game, and it's like, that's not a good reason to be excited. You need a good reason to be excited. I don't know if you've ever seen, I have a video, I'll look for this video after my talk. I have a video I want to show you after my talk real quick. Sorry. But why is important? Because why allows you to talk from your heart. It allows you to talk about the things that you're excited about, the things that you care about. When I made Luftrausers, our dogfighting game, I was really fascinated by espionage, by people, by technology and the advances of technology. And I thought that was fascinating, and I wanted to make a game about that. And I'm excited about that. This is a thing that I deeply cared about. And it took me weeks to figure out why I was excited about Luftrausers. But it was important because I could talk to you about Luftrausers. I could talk about the beautiful art style, how it's monochrome, it just uses 8 colors, how I love the way the silhouettes look, about the clouds. But those are not the things I'm really excited about. The thing I'm really excited about is that at the heart of Luftrausers is this idea about technology, about spying, about how things changed in the last century or so. And I think that is fascinating. I think that is exciting. So when I talk about Luftrausers, I talk about that. Because when I talk about that, I am excited. And if you are making a game and you are not excited about it, then why are you making that game? Make the game you're excited about. Don't make the game that you have to make. Don't make the game that you have to make to earn money. You know which game will earn you money? The game that you're excited about. You know why that game will earn you money? Because that's the game you're excited about. It's that simple. It's not harder than that. Make the games you're excited about. Yes, make sure that they're games that you can sell a few of, right? But be excited. You can do both. It's not one or the other. It's not either I'm excited about the game or I can make money with the game. In general, if you're an independent, if you're not excited about the game, you're not going to be able to convince anybody else to be excited about it. So then, this is actually not really all that important a question, but it can be pretty good to think about. Why am I pitching that to you? So when you send an email, think about why you're sending it now. If you are making an iOS game, a good rule of thumb is to let the press know about 1 month in advance, not later. You know why you do 1 month in advance? Because they're going to need some time to play your game. And they get hundreds of games. Like the average person in the press gets 700 plus emails a day. So the way they go about reading that is very simple. They wake up in the morning, they make a cup of coffee. While they're doing that, they're checking Twitter on their phone. If something important happened on social media, they're going to write about that. Because that's happening now. So that's relevant. If there's nothing there, they're going to read their email. Now, 500 of the email they get have a bad subject line. They don't read those. It's just done. Bad subject line, not even going to look. The 200 that are left have a good subject line. So they're going to see if there's people in there or games in there that they already know to be newsworthy. If they find those, they're going to read those and ignore the rest. Now, after that, there's about 100 emails left, right? So you're going to read the first paragraph. That's the first 3 lines of your email. If those are interesting, if those are good, if those keep their attention, they're going to keep reading. If not, they're going to drop your email. That was it. At that point, they have about 10, 15 emails left. They can write, usually a member of the press can write 3 to 5 articles a day. So about 4. So of those 15 emails, they can write 4 articles. They're going to see which one of those emails is the best news, it's the most interesting, then write about that. So you need to make sure that when you write an email, you've got the right timing. Is this news? Is this a game that nobody has talked about ever? In that case, it's news. Nobody has ever talked about your game. That's news, right? Is this a game that's about to release? That's news. But you also want to think about if the press already knows your game, they're more likely to read it, right? So you want to make sure that they know about your game early. If your game is not even close to ready, but if your game is kind of what it needs to be in the end, go and start emailing the press. Email them a build of your game, email them screenshots, email them trailers, and just let them know, hey listen, this game isn't done yet, but I just want to let you know. I just want to let you know that we're working on this and we're very excited about it. We think it's a cool project. And we'll get back in touch later. Because if they read that email and they go like, oh, this looks interesting, the next time you email them, they're going to be like, I've heard of this game. I don't remember, it must have been months ago, but I know the name of this game. Let me check that email. That's a good way to get press. If you're making a PC, Mac, or Linux game, please take a month more. So iOS games, Android games, email the press 1 month in advance at the latest. Earlier is better. If you're making a PC, Mac, or Linux game, 2 months. Because PC, Mac, or Linux games tend to be a bit bigger. They tend to take more time to properly review. Also, it's a place that's very, very busy. Especially now, don't release a PC, Mac, or Linux game right now. Because everybody's playing AAA games. Also think about that, like, is now the right time? Should I wait a bit? You always want to start marketing well before your launch. One of the worst emails I get a lot is, hi, we're about to launch our game tomorrow, how do I market? It's too late. Make sure that you think about this from the start. When you start making a game, start thinking about marketing. So when you pitch to the press, they're to gain something. The only reason they're going to write about your article is because it's good for them. The press loves video games, don't get me wrong. People in the video game press, they love games. They love gaming. They're excited to bring good games to people that want to play games. But don't forget that in the end, they're in the press, and that is not the business of video games. Their business is the business of news. So what they stand to gain from you is news. When they have news, people will read it. When people read the news, they get more page views. When they get more page views, they get to eat more of the ramen noodles at the end of the month. So what you want to do is make sure that you have news. If you're going to be emailing the press, you don't email them, hi, I'm making a game, because we're all making it. You don't email them, hi, I'm doing crowdfunding, because pretty much every single game that comes out nowadays is crowdfunding. You don't send them, hi, we're making a game for iOS, because half of the games being released right now is an iOS game. You think about what is interesting and different about your game. You think about what is the story. That's what you want to be thinking about. What is the story? One of the cool things about you all in this room is that you're here. You're in Taiwan. You're in Taipei. At least now you're in Taipei. I don't know if you're all from Taipei, but you are, you know. Anyway, one of the cool things about that is that in the international press, we aren't aware of too many games that come from here, which is a story. You might not think about it that way. You might just think about it and like the press doesn't write about us. There's a really cool story here. Because you're one of the only games that is reaching out to the international press. So reach out to the international press and let them know what game development is like here. Tell them the story of how you got started. Tell them the story of the community, of events like this. That's an interesting story. So think about your story. When I started, we had just quit our school. Every single email we wrote to the press mentioned that. That, you know, we're 2 game developers, but, you know, we were just done with school and we're just starting, we're trying our luck, hopefully it'll work. Weren't that many people that did that. Not a lot of people that go out of school and immediately start making indie games. We did, so we talked about that. Find a story. Whatever you're doing, there's always a story. When our game got cloned, story. We talked about that immediately, because how many people's games get cloned? How many people are willing to talk about that, right? Think about your story. Think about why you're making this game. Think about all the questions I told you before. And think about, is there a human story? Is there a story about people? Is there news? Is there something interesting? That's what you're selling the press. That's what you're giving the press, is a story, not a game. If you just send them a game, everybody does that. If you give them a story, you've got something interesting. What's it fun? So what would this cost them? And this one is important. Like, you're selling them news, basically. You're not really selling it. You're giving them news. But they have to do something for that. And to do something for that, they have to write an article, right? That's not that hard. Like, it's the Games Press. Like, they write articles all the time. Well, that would be wrong. Writing articles is actually really, really hard. It's surprisingly hard. It's extra hard because a lot of us game developers are really bad at making sure that their job is easy. And it should be our job to make sure their job is easy. Because remember those 15 emails at the end of the day where they have to write 4 articles? One of the best ways to make sure they don't write your article is not have screenshots available. A lot of game developers don't have good screenshots. They don't have a trailer. How is a major gaming website going to publish about your game if they can't find an image to put at the top of their article? Make sure you have screenshots available, because that makes their job easier. If you write an email to the press, one of the funniest things you can do is write it in third person. You know why that's simple? Because if you write your press release in third person, if you say, instead of saying, I am releasing a game, you say, Vlambeer is releasing a game. You know what they can do? Copy paste. And the press loves to copy paste. Because it saves them work. They don't have to write that part anymore. Vlambeer is to release their upcoming iOS title, Ridiculous Fishing, at the price of $2.99 on February 13, 2013. Great. Copy paste. Then they can write about the things they found interesting. Because they need to write a lot. They're writing all day. So you might as well give them that little thing that's easy, right? They're not going to copy paste everything you're saying. They're just going to pick out the things that are relevant that otherwise they would have to write for you. So make sure that you make their job easy. One of the things you can do is create a press kit. I made a tool for that for free. I'll talk about that later. Alright, so now you've got sort of an idea of what pitching is, right? Think about all these questions, all of them. Answer them in your head. Answer the question why. Most importantly, why. If I ask you why are you excited to be making this game, you can say, well, because you know it's a project I really like. That's not good enough. Ask yourself why again. Why is this a project you really like? Well, you know, I started working on it like a year and a half ago, and it's about a subject I really like. Why did you start working on it about a year and a half ago, and why is it a subject you like? Well, it's a subject I like because I've been fascinated by this since I was a kid. Why were you fascinated since you were a kid? Keep asking yourself why until you know exactly why. Have you heard of a game called No Man's Sky? This is a game you should look up. It's a beautiful game. It's a science fiction game, right? It's a beautiful science fiction game. It's going to come out for PlayStation 4. Actually, I only know about PlayStation 4. Anyway, it's beautiful. And the creators promise this procedural infinite universe. You can fly in any direction forever, right? You play with everybody else that's playing. It's big, it's ambitious, it's made by a small team in England. And you know why they made it? Because they love science fiction books. That's it. There's no story there about them wanting to make a procedural infinite world. They just wanted to make a world that felt like science fiction books. When you talk with them about the game, they won't talk about video games. They talk about writers like Asimov and Clarke and Heinlein, big science fiction writers of like the 1970s, like that period. That's what they're excited about. When you keep asking why, when you keep asking them why they made this game, eventually you end up at science fiction books. And they know that. So every time they talk about the game, they talk about how they're inspired by those books, and you see it. They're talking about the game, and in their eyes, you see, they're just talking about the game, and then they mention science fiction books, and they light up, and they start talking. They start getting excited. They get that passion. Because they care. They care about these books. And because they care about these books, they care about this game. Because this game is a tribute to those books. So here's some very concrete things you should do. Collect information about the press. This is really simple. You know a gaming website that is big? Go to the website and find their contact email address. If specific writers have specific email addresses, spend some time reading that website and figure out which person in that website would be the best to reach out. Just make an Excel spreadsheet. You know, make a list. Email address, website, how big they are. Is this a very well-known website? Is this not a very well-known website? You can look that up, right? You can go and find the website's Alexa ranking or like ranking on the internet. Figure out what their ranking is, figure out which site is big, and remember that. If somebody has written about you before, put them at the top of the list, because they're likely to write about you again. They've already written about you once, right? So make this list. My list is, at this point, it's like 1,700 entries, 1,700 different people in the press. That's 1,700 people that I can pick from when I have news. And that list is in order. I know who will write about us. I know who don't want to write about us. And that's good, because it means that if I have news, I can reach out to the right people. I think about, oh, this person wrote about the game we made before. Maybe they'll want to write about us again. And this person wrote about us 2 weeks ago, so they're probably not that interested in news right now. I keep track of when somebody wrote about us last. I keep track of what games they've written about. Keep track of all of them. That's a lot of work, but remember that pie chart I showed at the beginning of this? If you want to make money, if you want to make a living making games, you have to take this seriously. Taking it seriously means spending time. Time is your most valuable resource. Now, if you are at an event, and you are at an event right now, chances are there are people from the media. If you're an independent game developer making a game right now, find those people. I'm not sure if they have a different batch. Do people in the media have a different batch today? Yeah? Okay. Figure out which batch that is. And then, if you see somebody from the media, show them your game. Again, you're going to get about 3 sentences. They're busy. They want to be excited about your game, but unless you are excited about your game, it's going to be really hard for them to be excited. So when you go to them, and go to them today, go to them like during this event, think about how to promote your game to them, show it to them, actually go and show your game to them. If you don't have the game on you, why don't you have the game on you? Bring your game with you, you're going to a big event. If you don't have it on you, maybe a trailer, maybe some screenshots, maybe a story, but find them. I don't know how many there are here, but I know that there's at least 3 because I've interviews with 3 of them, I think. So find them, talk to them. And then if you can, get their card. And if you have their card, add it to your list. Met this person at this event. Put the events that you meet people with in that list, so that when you email them, you can go, hey, we met back at this event, I showed you my game, you thought it was pretty cool and told me to email again, so here I am. That's a way better email than going, this game is a game about, right? Because now there's a personal connection. You've met. People care about people they know. So, actually, not just introduce your game to press. We're here with a lot of game developers. Show your game to everybody. If you have a game on you and you care, please just go and show your game to everybody. I know it's scary. I know that you're working on this game. I know it's not finished. I know it's not perfect. I know there's lots of work left to do. Doesn't matter. Show your game to people. Show your game to people because they can give feedback. And if they can give you feedback, your game becomes better. And if your game becomes better, you have more chance of success. If you're here, you're working on an independent game, please find me after this talk somewhere and show me your game. I don't care that it's broken. I don't care that it's not finished. Show me your game. Please do it. Please bring yourself to show your game. If you're an independent game developer, you're here, make this a challenge. Show it to at least 3 members of the press, show it to me, and show it to 10 other developers. Here's the challenge. Do that. Please do that for me. So, create a press kit. This is a bit of self-promotion. I created Press Kit. It's a free tool. It's available on a link that I made later. Press Kit is an easy way to show your game to press. It's free, I don't charge for it, I don't do anything with it, I don't get anything out of it, I just made it because I want to help developers. So please download this, figure out how it works, and make a press kit for your game. Because when somebody from the media wants to write about your game, they're going to need your screenshots, they're going to need your summary, they're going to need your trailer, and all that is in there. You want to make the life of people that want to write about your game as simple as possible. And then one more time, think about your strategy. Think about what you're doing. You're making a game that is interesting to you because I don't know why it's interesting to you. So, is there a story there? Is there something interesting there? Should you be going to events? Can you afford going to events? Can you afford showcasing at events? Can you... Is this a game that is very narrative and you only get to play it once, so if you tell people about the story too much, then the game won't be fun anymore? So what should I talk about then? If I can't talk about the story, do I talk about the mechanics or about the world? Do I tease the story a bit? Like, do I just give little hints? Or is it a very arcadey game that I can just show people videos over and over and they still won't be spoiled on the game? They still want to play the game. With Nuclear Throne, we're literally live streaming development. So people know everything in the game. But a lot of things in Nuclear Throne are really rare. So even if we show people, they still might not have played it after 300 hours of playing. And a lot of players of Nuclear Throne have played 300 to 500 hours at this point and still haven't played with everything. Even though they've seen everything in our live streams, the game is still exciting. So think about what will be a good strategy for you to show your game. And if you're going to be doing this, there's one resource that's free that you can always ask questions of. If you have a question and you don't know the answer, there's two different solutions. Solution A is, well, actually 3 different solutions. Solution A is, this question is too hard, I give up. It's not a good solution. Solution B is, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to try something. That's better than solution A, but it's still not a good solution. The good solution is, I'm going to ask somebody who does know. And the fun thing about the games industry is that even though, technically, we're all competing, we're not really competing. If you make a game, that's no danger to me. If I make a game, that's no danger to you. If you make a game, that's no danger to anybody else in this room. There are millions and millions of gamers around the world, and they all want to play good video games. It's really hard to compete because Minecraft, which is one of the biggest games in the history of mankind, is still selling like 25,000 copies a day. Those are 25,000 that haven't bought the game yet, that heard of it last week. If Minecraft is still selling that much, my games will never stop selling. In fact, Ridiculous Fishing came out in 2013, it's still selling. I mean, it's not as much as when we started, but it's still going. So, we're not competing. And one of the good things about us not having to compete is that it means we can help each other. I make Presskit for free because I want to help other developers. And you know the good thing? Because more independent games get attention now, my games get taken more seriously. Because I make independent games. So we can help each other. If you have a question about the press, if you have a question about who you should reach out to, you have a question about events you should go to, email me. Send me an email, rami@vlambeer.com. That's me. If you're making an Infinite Runner, there's a guy in America who made Cannibal, Adam Saltzman. You can reach him on Twitter, @AdamAtomic. That's his Twitter handle. If you send him a question, pretty sure he'll answer. One of my big heroes in game development, Warren Spector, used to work on a game called Deus Ex. Love that game. I ran into him one day, said hi. Turns out he's the nicest person I've ever met. He's very smart, he's been in games for like 20 years. I never dared to email him. You know what he told me? Why didn't you email me? And he's right. Why didn't I email him? Like, why don't I email people that have the answers to questions I need? So I started doing that. I started, every time I have a question that I don't know the answer to, I email somebody who does know. Sometimes that's game developers that are also independent. Sometimes it's AAA game developers. Sometimes it's people in the press. Sometimes it's business people, sometimes it's lawyers, sometimes it's accountants. But I stopped being afraid of asking questions. You know why? Because the worst answer I'm going to get is no answer. But then what? I just didn't get an answer. I'll just try somebody else. So why be afraid of asking questions? You have a question about marketing? I know about marketing. Email me. So a lot of people that know about marketing, email them. You are about to do a publishing deal? You don't know whether the terms are good? Email somebody that has done a publishing deal. See if the terms are good. Just say, well, this publisher offered me this and this and this. Is this a good deal? They go, no. Then you know how to go back to the negotiation table. So ask. Think about your strategy, and if you're unsure about anything at all, send an email to somebody that does know the answer. Send an email to 10 people that do know the answer, and let's see if they agree. Maybe they don't agree. Figure out what's good for you. Now write a great email. Like I said, there's a few things you need to do to write a good email. Number one, subject line. Subject line starts with the name of your game or the name of your studio. If it's not one of those two things, you're probably not writing a good email. Vlambeer, whatever. Nuclear Throne, whatever. With the first two words of my subject line, people know what I'm talking about. Then in the subject line, I make sure to talk about the news. Vlambeer to release new game. Nuclear Throne to have sale. I don't know. The news is in the subject line. Make sure that when somebody reads the subject line, they don't go, wow. What they need to go is, oh, that's the news. You don't need to wow them. You don't need to impress them. You just need to let them know what the news is. That's all. That's what they want to know. Then, your first paragraph, 3 sentences max. What is the news? What am I talking about? What is this game? Why am I excited? 3 sentences. You use more than that, you've lost the attention of 90% of people in the press. Why? Because they have 100 emails to read. They don't have time to read every single one. That's not how they work. 3 sentences. If you're going to write an email, quote yourself. If you have a thought, put that in the email and put it like between quotes and then go, comma, says Rami Esmail Vlambeer. You know why? Because those read well. Quotes read well. They're human. They're personal. They feel like a human said them. So if you have a quote, if you've got something to say, just add it to the email. And do it in third person, so that it's easy to copy-paste. And if you're making a game, I said at the beginning of this talk, a game is only a game if somebody can play it. Only if somebody can play it. If you want the press to write about your game, make sure they can play it. Send them a bill. Don't be afraid. Again, you might be afraid of showing me the game. You might be afraid of showing the press the game. No reason to be afraid. Somebody loves it, great, you're on the right track. Somebody hates it, great, now you've got information about how you make your game better. In fact, I think somebody hating your game is probably better for you than somebody loving your game. When somebody goes, wow, this game is great, there's nothing you can fix. Now what? You're done. Somebody says, I hate this, you can go, why? Why do you hate it? Then they can tell you why, and then you can fix it. So find people that hate your game, and show them your game. And with the press, find people that you think would love your game, and send it to them. And if they don't like it, ask them why. You can ask the press why they didn't like your game. They won't bite, usually. And again, respect the press's time. So write short emails, be succinct. Don't put your email, don't put like a zip file with a password with 30 images that's like 100 megabytes in your email. Make sure you link to images. Respect their time. They've got a lot of emails to read. Make sure that your email is short. Make sure that your email has a good subject line. Make sure that they don't have to scroll for 20 minutes. That it's not in a tiny font. That it's not in like pink on white background. Just write a normal email. Plain text, black letters, white background, nothing else. You don't need anything else. And then you send 1 million emails. Remember that list you made? Send it to all of them. Every single one. Why not? Why would you hold back? If they don't reply, that's fine. Nobody ever replies in the press. The press doesn't really have time to reply to a lot of emails. Some of them do. That's super nice. I love those people because they email me back. Most of them don't. If they don't write about your game, you know what the good solution is? You try again. Just send them another email. You know why? Because The reason they didn't write about your game could very well be that Halo 5 came out that day. Or the new Super Mario game came out. Or there's a new Need for Speed game. I don't know. There might just be bigger news. And then they won't read your email because they read that on social media. So they just dropped all the emails. Email them again. They don't write about it. Give it a few days. And then email them again. You know, when the press doesn't respond, that doesn't mean they hate you. You know what means they hate you? If they send you an email saying, please stop emailing you, I hate you. That's when they hate you. Until that time, you can keep emailing them. It's fine. They'll tell you to stop if you go too far. So don't send an email every day. Be respectful. But try a few times. If they don't respond the first time, give it a week, try again. And then if they have a question for you, if they want to do an interview, just say yes. Doesn't matter if you have enough time, doesn't matter if you want to do it right now. If you have the chance to interact with the press, yes, please. I had an interviewer once that said, can I do like a photo shoot with you in like designer t-shirts? I never wear designer t-shirts. Oh, sure. It was the most awkward thing I've done in my life. But they did write about my game, which was pretty great. So say yes. They want to do a video interview with you and you don't like video interviews, so what? This is your game, you care about it. Care about it. Do the video interview, even if you don't want to. If there's events that you could go to, there's this really cool website, I'll link to it later. Submit it to every single one. Submit it even if the event says you can only submit if you can attend the event. So if the event says you have to fly to I don't know, South Africa. If you get admitted to this, doesn't matter. Send your game. If it gets admitted and you can't fly out there, just go, hey, sorry, I know that I submitted the game and I know that it got entered, but I really can't afford to fly to South Africa. Chances are that they will fly you there. And if they don't fly you there, at least you know your game is good and you can say, hey, we got nominated for this next time you email the press. So that's pretty great. Every single event. Here, in America, in Canada, in South Africa, in Europe, in Germany, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, every country you've never heard of. Submit it to every single event. You know why? Because you just might make it. And if you don't, you probably get some good feedback. And when the press writes about you, remember that they are human beings that just spend a bunch of their time on you. Send them a really short email with these 2 words. Thank you. I really appreciate that you wrote about my game. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And I'll make sure that if we have news, I'll email you again. Have a wonderful day. Thanks. All you need to do. You know why? Because now they know that you are not a terrible person, and hopefully that means the next time they have news from you, they'll write about it. Just be nice. Just be nice. If you make a game, you would hope that a fan would email you and tell you that they loved your game. If the press writes about you, they're feeling exactly the same way. They hope that somebody will read the article and think, thank you. If you're the developer of the game, you're probably pretty thankful that they wrote about you. So say thank you. Even if you don't like the article, say thank you. Even if the article doesn't like your game, say thank you. We've had articles that really hate our games, and I've always emailed them and said, hey, I disagree with what you said, but thanks for taking the time to write about my game. And very often, that'll just mean that you get an email, hey, listen, it's not that I hate the game, I just thought I just wanted to write an article about this, but let me know if you have new games. New friend, add them to the list. These things are really cool, these apps. The first is called Promoter, the second one is something I'm working on called Distribute. They're both internet services. Now, there are a lot of internet services that you can use that are really useful when you're making a game. So, instead of doing this thing where I list every single one of them, I did something smarter. I made this link. If you go to vlambeer.com/toolkit, there is a giant list of free tools. For marketing, for development, there's lists of press that are interested in your game, there's presentations on how to polish, there's presentations on how to market, it's all there, most of it is free. If you want to make indie games, if you listen to this talk and you're like, well, but how do I do all that? That link has a lot of the answers. So please write this down, make a photo, use your fancy smartphones or something to do that, and go visit it if you have some time to read up a bit. And I guess starting to run out of time, so make games. Thank you.
那因为时间的关系，我们现在没有办法就是接受 Q&A。不过Remy 都有讲，他很希望大家有游戏的没有游戏的，就是会后就去找他。那他今天到中午下午都应该还在这边晃来晃去，那就是只要你看到他就直接上去讲话，就不会，如果英文有点不太通也没有关系，就是你说话讲都可以。OK，请再给 Remy 一次掌声，谢谢。